This drop of natural beauty isn't as natural as it appears. See all this water here? Well, in the middle we have a causeway because over there is yet more water. And the reason is, this is in fact the way towards the east entrance of our next little adventure. It is Char Temple, built in the 10th century. Now we can imagine that it was quite a sight because we have 3 temples in this grouping and there's some unique aspects about them. But I do like to walk you in a bit so you can get a feel of the place. But it is this very path that those ancients would have trodden in the search for blessing, for guidance, and for some ideas really, because the priests would have been wise men. It's through these final few trees and we will get our first sight. Can you start to see the masonry on the floor there? Well, this is one of the aspects that makes this a bit unique and special. See here, and here, and here. These temples are built on their own little hill, and that is a bit different. Not only do we know that these particular temples were built in the 10th century, I can also tell you who commissioned them. It was Jayavarman V. And when they built these temples, they had a bit of a problem. And the way they're built shows us what their issue was. You see how they're elevated up, and you can see like this gap in the middle, that's water erosion. Now, nigh on 1,000 years ago when these were built, they were built on a nice sturdy platform, 1, 2, 3 temples. But as time has gone by and they've been neglected, water has done its wicked work. And the uniqueness of this site continues on, because what we have here is a laterite temple, you know, those big stony blocks. And on the end, we have the same. But in the middle is a brick temple. And there's something very special about that one, because it actually has ancient Sanskrit text on it to this day. And what is even more astonishing is I can tell you a little bit of what that ancient text is saying. And we start with the first temple, which is on the end on the right. And as you can see, we'll have to clamber up some to get to it, being very cautious. My foot still hurts from a tumble I took a couple of weeks ago. Now, there's not an awful lot to show, just a vacant space where a god once stood. But do remember, the last temple we will be seeing actually speaks to us. But there's something much more interesting, and it's round the back here. Now, this is why you should always walk round temples rather than just, you know, aiming for the main course, because round the back is something that should not be on the floor. Have a look at these beauties. There's 2 of them. These are the pinnacles that go at the top of the temple, you know, the top of the spires, shall we say. And for some reason, they have been beautifully preserved. Look, you can see the little doorways, and if I put my fingernail there, you can see how tiny they are. And the detailing, it's all still here. Look, here we see another doorway, a more grander doorway with an ornate sort of topping. And there's a second over here. Now, I've literally just hauled this one out of the mud. But again, if I put my fingernail there, you can see how tiny these little doorways are. It's like a miniature lost world. And here is the back of that temple that we've just visited. But it's time to go round the front again, because it's at the front we have this stone debris field, and there's some absolutely humongous stones here. There's some ornate carvings. I've seen some nagas. Now, this one's a bit of a mystery because it's like they've kind of started it but it was never finished, because that is certainly not erosion. But this one here looks as dull as ditch water, doesn't it? But it's when we go round to the front, we see something quite magnificent. I'm going to have to get right down on the floor. Look at this. This detailing is superb. An awful lot of money and time and passion was put into building these temples, because this level of detailing is pretty rare. Ancient art and wonders are literally strewn all over the floor. Have a look at the size of this monolith. Notice the detailing here, how these perfectly square holes have been made to create lintels and supports. But it's up here we need to clamber for our second temple. Now this is all brick that I'm walking over, and it does make it a bit like negotiating over ball bearings. There's a large spider. Now then, again along here we see more of this wondrous ancient detailing, but in here we have a bit of a clue. Now you see there's one hole here, and there's a second hidden under this piece of masonry. We can just see the corner. That would lead us to believe there were two statues in position here. As to who they were, of course we cannot say. What we can say is they've been carried off by looters. But there is something that they could not carry off, and that is actually the voice of the ancients. Now usually these are taken. As to why this is still here when all else is gone, I just don't know. But it's this central, most ruined tower, the one that I said was made of brick, which has suffered the worst. But it holds the gem, it holds the jewel. Again, I have to be very careful. It's very slippery. It's been raining of late. Again, we see this magnificent detailing. And as I get a grip and move on over, it starts to come into view. What we have here, but much better on this side, is this ancient Sanskrit text. Just have a look. Isn't it beautiful? Now what it's talking about is it's praising the queen, Javavantev. I have to be careful with that word, and I may have said it wrong, and if I have, then please do correct me. But it's praising the queen, and that seems the central purpose of this temple. And with these scripts, there's no real great wonders. It's often very much a form of propaganda, you see, that actually, speaks very highly of the ruling king, or in this case, the ruling queen of the age. So far away in an ancient mystical land, there is a doorway. One with ancient inscriptions, both right and left. And if I was to stand right here, let's say, these words would echo all around me. And what is truly amazing, of course, is we know what these words are saying. They speak of a queen, an ancient queen that has left us oh so long ago. But now look at it. The statues have gone and most of the temple have gone. But for some reason, those words still echo on, and that fascinates me. And do you know what? It's not much of a leap of the imagination if we say to ourselves, did the Queen herself come here to see this temple? Well, over that way is Angkor Wat. It's not that far away, the major city of the empire. So why wouldn't the Queen have come here? I mean, most temples are dedicated, of course, to the kings. So she would have come. It just makes sense. It's logical. So we can say the Queen came here. We know that the inscription is here. So we, just with logic, can say the ancient queen stood right here, because that's the best way to read this, and she would have smiled. Ha! Ha! Standing right there. We can walk in the footsteps of this great beauty, because I'm sure she was. I'm sure she was an absolute beauty of a queen, and she stood here and smiled, and she was pleased at this great work. But unfortunately, the ravages of time have taken their toll, and now it is just a portal to, well, who knows where. And that is why this channel is called Forgotten Temples. And if you enjoy our little adventures, then I ask you if you could assist in building this library. And the way to do that is to go to www.patreon.com/temples. And any help would be deeply appreciated. As always, it only remains for me to say, I wish you absolutely nothing but the very best. You take good care now.